Please be seated. For this evening, if there's a fire alarm sounds, please make your way from the chambers using either the fire escapes to my right by the staircase to lead off the lobby outside the chambers. Apologies for absence. Ms Willis, may I have the apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Cliff Betton has sent his apologies and Councillor Morgan Rice has advised he's been delayed.
Moving on to agenda item 2. I propose that the minutes of both the meetings of the Council held on 15th of May 2024 plus the meetings on the 17th of July 2024 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Okay. Item 3, declaration of interest. Agenda item 3, declaration of interest. Do any members have any disclosure pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered at this meeting? Agenda item 4. I am advised that no questions have been received from members of the public. Agenda item 5, my announcement. Since I've become a mayor, I haven't really said anything. I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who's been supporting me, especially the Democratic Services. They've been great. Since becoming the mayor, it's been really, really, really busy. And I really enjoyed every day, every announcement, every appointment I've been going to with the help of my deputy, Louise. I've attended quite a few events, Camberley Summer Party, concerts, Frimley and Camberley Cadet, opening new shops. And also one day I had 4 events. And on my 4th event, it was a small run, trying to chase for a bottle of wine, and my husband ended up rupturing his Achilles, so hence his crutches. So the turn had to be so busy for me, I had to sort of juggle everything around. But all went well. I've also attended Sovereign's Parade, car show, and I was very much honoured to attend a birthday for Ethel Caterham, 115. She was such a lovely lady, really nice. She lives in Lightwater Care Home, and she even had the chance to ask me, where do I live local or do I come from somewhere else? And she's had connections with India as well, and it was quite nice to catch up with her. 115, I was impressed. I can't remember what happened yesterday, but you can imagine. So if you do get a chance to visit her in Lightwater, please do so. And we are honoured to have her, because she is the oldest lady in England. So she'll be proud. Again, the other one was flag raising for Pride. That was really nice. Thank you very much for all those who attended. And 999. It was really an honour for us to all see all the volunteers and their services and people who work very hard. And that 2-minute silence means I thought it was never going to end, so you can just imagine. So, and anything else you want to know, where I've been, what I do, it's all on the website, Mayor's Diary. Thank you. Members, I'm sure you will all join me and congratulate Louis Mayers on his exciting new role abroad. I think he's going to Hong Kong, is it? Are we going to miss your questions? This means he can no longer be a councillor, and we received his resignation yesterday. Thank you to Louis and his services for the borough and Old Dean Ward since his elections in May 2023. On behalf of the council, I wish him all the best, very best for the future. Do come back and see us. Agenda item 6. I would like to invite the leader, Councillor Sean MacDonald, to make his announcement, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a fairly busy agenda ahead of us, however much to update you on, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. Starting with the National Planning Policy Framework consultation, in August we were notified by Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, of proposed national planning policy reforms. One of the key changes impacting many districts and boroughs is the proposed changes to housing targets. For Surrey Heath, the proposed changes to housing delivery will be challenging due to the large areas of Greenbelt and other special protections within our beautiful borough. Our planning team are preparing a response to the proposed planning reforms, which closes next Monday, and then we will have to await the final framework, transitional arrangements and target confirmation, probably around the end of the year. In addition, I have worked with fellow Surrey leaders, South East leaders, District Council Network and Liberal Democrat leaders nationally to prepare their responses, which will encompass the challenges these reforms create in balancing appropriate development to address housing needs with environmental and infrastructure concerns. Coming closer to home again, in relation to our local plan, the consultation on the Regulation 19 publication closes this Friday. Our planning policy team will evaluate the comments received, and once all the information has been collated and compiled, the plan will be submitted in accordance with the local development schedule. Moving on to property in Camberley Town Centre regeneration, I am pleased to confirm that following recent lettings, we are now let 100% across our industrial sites. Well done to all those involved. In Camberley Town Centre, we will be shortly publishing our Camberley Town Centre strategic vision to ensure alignment with our emerging local plan and provide a regeneration roadmap to residents, the first preparatory step of which we hope to announce very shortly. We have now commenced phase 2 of the square roof repairs, something we know of great importance to businesses located there, our residents and visitors, as well as work on the public realm improvements in Ashwood House, Pembroke Walkway and Arnold Walk. We have also commissioned an artist to work with local schools to produce our town centre art programme and are finalising contracts for new cafes and kiosks in the central area of the square. In relation to the former House of Fraser building, following the executive's approval earlier this year, a contract for the enabling asbestos removal and related works is due to be signed in the next few weeks. More widely, we continue to support businesses within the borough, including delivering another business breakfast, this time in Bagshot on Thursday, the 3rd of October. Our Skills Bootcamp information pop-up will be taking place on the Old Dean on Thursday, the 19th of September. Delivering business decarbonisation courses in partnership with Surrey County Council, with the opportunity for businesses to apply for a low-cost loan available to make capital improvements. Our thanks to the Economic Development team for their work. Our finance team are busy preparing the budget for the next financial year. The next few years will be a challenging time budget-wise for the Council, as the impact of high interest rates, cost increases and capped council tax receipts is felt for longer than anticipated. Expectations of a single-year settlement from government with very little extra funding means that this year's council budget will be particularly challenging. Now, I know some opposition members don't like me mentioning the T word, and no, it's not Thatcher, though her shadow lies dark over our social housing stock situation, as we discussed last night. However, Truss's irresponsible fiscal event continues to cause significant pain to the council finances, and indeed all our residents' personal finances too, causing increased support demands to our services. Whilst there are some fast-dwindling flexible reserves that the council can call upon, the time to fix the metaphorical roof, not just the square's physical one, starts now and through the impending budgetary round. Looking back to last week, we opened the consultation on a new set of proposed bylaws, which will cover all 56 of our open spaces. The consultation is set to close on the 4th of November and seeks to refresh the previous bylaws, which also included areas that have come under the council's ownership since the current bylaws were introduced. The proposed bylaws follow the same principles of ensuring our open spaces are treated respectfully, better reflect the way our parks and open spaces are now used, include more clarity around ball games and cycling, as well as anti-social and useless behaviour, which may be caused by new technology. Feedback received will be responded to collectively after the consultation closes. Moving to a sticky problem, as part of our drive to maintain clean streets and smart open spaces set out within the council strategy, we continually drive for improvements in our public realm. Please confirm that thanks to a bid submitted by Joint Waste Solutions, we were awarded a Keep Britain Tidy Chewing Gum Task Force grant. That's a bit of a mouthful. Which has been used to clear gum and deep clean pavements in Frimley High Street, Dean Parade and Heatherside Arcade. Bagshot High Street will shortly be cleaned under the same grant fund, having been delayed by technical difficulties. We have also extended this programme to include areas of Camberley to enhance the street scene within the town centre for residents. Also worthy of note is the programme of bin replacement and improvement started at the end of last month and is scheduled to be completed by the first week of October, with locations in Frimley and Frimley Green being the first areas of focus. I know we all hope that this will address peak demand periods better, avoid weather and fox-related littering, and keep Surrey Heath smarter for our residents to enjoy. Councillors will be aware we recently completed the incredibly successful Summer of Sport project in partnership with Places Leisure. The project delivered 8 sessions across the borough during August, with a weekday offer for young people and a weekend offer for families to get active together. These sessions were free for all and resulted in 92 young people accessing free sport during the summer holiday. For those of you who attended the recent External Partnership Select Committee, when Places Leisure attended, you will know that this is one of many benefits of our strong and successful partnerships with Places Leisure, which we will continue to actively nurture. Moving on to the theatre, I'm happy to report that the theatre remediation programme to make the rack safe remains on track and on budget, with plans to reopen in December with our hugely popular pantomime, which this year will be Snow White. Performances will run from the 7th to the 31st of December. If you haven't already done so, I would encourage you all to visit our new Camberley Theatre website to buy your pantomime tickets and view some of the other fantastic attractions we have coming up in 2025. Councillors, this council delivers essential services at a very high standard, and my thanks go out to all our officers and valued partners who deliver our services on behalf of everyone living and working in Surrey Heath. This evening I wanted to turn the spotlight on our resettlement team, which support vulnerable families fleeing war and persecution. Just one example of this, which I received recently, was feedback from a family supported through the Afghan Relocation Assistance Programme. This is a programme that supports Afghan citizens who worked for or with the UK government in Afghanistan, and as a result are assessed to be at high risk or imminent risk of threat to life following the Taliban uprising. I was shared feedback from one of our Arab families to whom we have recently reduced our support, as they've now obtained long-term accommodation and found permanent jobs. The feedback from the family is incredibly heartening to read, and I think should be a real credit to those involved in the programme that preceded me and other councillors. Many thanks for everything. We cannot find words to describe how grateful we are to all of you for your support to help us build our life in the UK. I am proudly confirming that with your continued support, we are fully integrated into the British community and culture. We will never be able to forget what we have received while we had nothing. This is certainly one example of how to bring two very different nations' hearts together. The UK has given us a lot, and now it's time to pay back. I am optimistic that our children will grow up in the right place and then be able to provide the best to the country and their community. We are so proud and fortunate to be part of the Surrey Heath community. Once again, we deeply appreciate you good people for helping us through this journey. Councillors, I for one am immensely grateful for the dedication and effort of our officers in supporting these families who come to Surrey Heath, and furthermore I am sure you are too. That is not to say that the service isn't encountering challenges with the ongoing uncertainty around the future of the Family Support Programme. The Family Support Programme delivers high-quality support services to some of the most vulnerable families in Surrey Heath and our neighbour Runnymede. The future of this service is at jeopardy due to our partners at Surrey County Council and their refusal to provide a clear indication of whether the service will continue beyond March 2025, causing uncertainty for our team. I'm sure that everyone in the chamber will be concerned to hear that the future of this invaluable service is at serious risk. But can I assure you that officers are continually challenging county colleagues for a resolution, particularly the Chief Executive, Nick Stevens. I would welcome all allies possible in getting clarity from Surrey County Council for our staff's well-being and especially ensuring our most vulnerable residents are supported into the future. Moving on to people matters, let me congratulate Lewis Mears on his exciting new role in Hong Kong, thank him for his service to the Council and regret the impact on the age range in the Chamber. I think we'd all agree that Lewis was reliable in his council attendance, genuine in supporting his residents' casework, active in supporting and advocating for their interests, and diligent in holding the administration and myself to account, and an honest partner when it came to working in the best interests of the borough as a whole. All personal attributes his substitute might reflect on. We wish Lewis all the best, and perhaps Ying can share some of her tips to help settle him in. As councillors will be aware, with Lewis's unexpected move, this leaves a vacancy in Old Dean. Old Dean is one of our most deprived wards, leading to noticeably lower life expectancy versus other areas in the borough, and with many residents having multiple challenges to deal with on a daily basis, be they financial, physical or mental health, or housing related, giving the highest density of housing association provision in the borough. As many councillors have highlighted in this chamber, this results in a heavy case workload in Old Dean. As Liberal Democrats, this administration believes the people of Old Dean deserve a full complement of democratic representation as soon as possible, particularly given it is a two-council ward, as current capacity to support has now been halved overnight. From many perspectives, a by-election is the last thing any of us want, and I definitely include myself there, and I am very conscious of the workload on the officer team, especially in democratic services led by our hyper-diligent and committed Miss Willis. And we will have to put in place a mitigation plan shortly. However, it is my intention to write to the Chief Executive tomorrow, as will our resident-focused community champion MP Al Pinkerton, to trigger the by-election before the October half-term. Moving on to less political ground quickly, the quantum of long-standing staff here at Surrey Heath is indicative of the friendly work environment and the commitment our staff have to Surrey Heath. I am pleased to confirm that since my last announcements in this chamber, we have 3 additional members of staff who are about to celebrate their 10 years at Surrey Heath. These being an internal auditor, a security facilities officer and a network and security officer. Thank you all for your dedicated service. We continue to place great importance on investing in our staff. To this end, I am pleased to report that one of our revenue officers has recently attained their Institute of Revenue Rating and Valuation Level 3 diploma, whilst one of our senior planning officers has successfully attained their master's degree, becoming a chartered town planner. Brilliant personal achievements to celebrate that will also benefit residents. Lastly, I'm pretty sure you're glad about this, Lastly, I am delighted to inform members, and particularly residents of Bagshot, younger ones especially, that we have an agreement finally aligned with Surrey County Council to allow progression of the Whitmore Play Park redevelopment. Tenders are already out and will be closed at the end of October, with selection from the preferred vendors' proposed designs informed through public consultation before Christmas. We hope that the playground will be in place by the holidays, ready for longer days and better weather. I would like to thank Councillor Richard Wilson for his championing of his residents' interests here, and the Legal and Leisure Services teams for their endurance. Thank you, Mayor. That ends Leader's announcement.
Leader. Item 7, parking petitions. Members, the next item is to consider 2 petitions submitted to the Council concerning parking. You will see that the petitions took place several months ago, but have been delayed due to a number of reasons, in particular a general election. So we thank all those involved in the petition for their patience in waiting for them to be considered. I propose to hear the petition in turn. The lead petitioner for each petition will be involved to introduce their petition. After both petitions have been introduced, you will be invited to debate them, and I will ask the councillors to move a motion on how to respond to the petitions. As the lead petitioner of the first petition cannot make this meeting, Councillor Josh Thorne will be presenting it on her behalf. Councillor Thorne, you may speak for up to 5 minutes on this petition.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I've been given a statement by Louise Granger to read out. Thank you for inviting me to present my petition this evening. I must apologise that I cannot be there in person. This is due to onboarding in a new job in West Sussex. Therefore, Councillor Josh Thorne will be representing me. My petition took the stance from a health and well-being and place of worship point of view. We, the public, firmly believe that it is entirely inappropriate to introduce new and increased parking charges across Surrey Heath. This includes unnecessary spending on installing ticket machines in car parks like Heatherside and Paddock Hill, which for machines that won't even really collect revenue. While the council continues to criticise their own town centre in the local and national press, they should be focused on increasing footfall in Camberley, not driving it away with needless parking fee hikes. We should be encouraging people to visit from a wider area, not deterring them with higher parking costs that will simply push them to shop closer to home or at a cheaper alternative. If our small community shopping areas have parking fees attached to them, they would disintegrate as they cannot possibly compete with the large retail parks who do not have free parking. Who do have free parking. I urge you not to install unnecessary pay-on-foot machines in car parks such as Heatherside and Paddock Hill. These machines will only create more difficulties for the public, particularly those who need to visit these car parks multiple times a day, whether it be for the school run, picking up prescriptions, grabbing last-minute supplies or attending church. Our local residents are supporting their local businesses, which helps to keep shops open and ultimately benefits the council through various rental agreements. We must also consider the impact on community volunteers, those who kindly assist elderly neighbours by picking up essential items. It is simply unfair for them to face additional inflated parking costs. This will have a negative effect on many aspects of community life, especially when the council will inevitably bear the burden of providing care for elderly residents whose neighbours can no longer assist. How can this be justified when major retailers like Tesco and Sainsbury's provide free parking? Importantly, Burrell Road car park must remain as it is, being the only car park that serves Station Road surgery. The proposed change to allow just 30 minutes of free parking is far too tight for anyone attending a GP appointment and or collecting a prescription from Frimley High Street. I know this due to personal experience at Station Road surgery. Let us not forget that we are in the midst of a cost of living crisis, with pensioners losing their winter fuel payments and utility bills increasing again. Our council must think about the bigger picture and the lasting impact these increases will have on our community. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Yours faithfully, Louise Granger.
Thank you, Councillor Thorne. Please, can I ask Atiya Fard to come to the microphone and present her petition? Have I pronounced your name right, I hope? Ms. Fard, you may speak for up to 5 minutes on your petition.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I go to Frimley Lodge twice a day, and bringing in car parking charges will impact me continuing to use. My main issue is a potential parking charge at Lightwater Country Park. As a family, we visit the park most days after a school run. If charges are introduced, then we will no longer be visiting daily, if at all. We haven't stopped using the Frimley Green shop, as there is no parking when it was an hour. It gave you time to have your hair done or go to the doctor's. It has become very expensive to park for 15 minutes to pick up something in Camberley. I visit the atrium a lot less as a result. These are only 4 of the 483 comments left for the council through the survey I set up only 3 weeks ago. Surrey Heath residents have made it loud and clear that they are not on the side of this council when it comes to parking charges policies. Not long ago, our pensioners were deprived of winter fuel payments by the current government, and now they have been deprived of free access to shops and amenities in Surrey Heath by this local government. The reduction of 1 hour free parking to 30 minutes, the increase in parking charges across the borough, particularly in Camberley Town Centre, the implementation of standard tariffs for car parks on Sundays have driven some away from Surrey Heath to the neighbouring town. This is a time when this council has every responsibility to ensure Surrey Heath thrives economically and that its residents' health and welfare are protected. Sadly, residents feel let down by the council. Madam Mayor, over 1,800 residents signed a petition I set up in February 2024 saying no to these punitive policies. And now, over 1,300 residents and businesses have completed a survey I created. I shared the survey results with all the councillors earlier today. I apologise if they just received it before the meeting. I intended that they would have it a few hours before. And I would like to take you through the survey results. The numbers that I now share are more up to date than the emails, that the ones sent earlier by email to the councillors. Overall, about 1,000 respondents out of 1,350 have confirmed that they have suffered either significant or severe impact due to the reduction of 1 hour of free parking to 30 minutes. And some have said they now shop elsewhere because of this. 905 respondents have stated if parking charges are introduced at Frimley Lodge Park or Lightwater Country Park, they will not visit these parks anymore. 305 have said they would less likely visit the parks. The parking strategy of February 2024 states that about 20,000 cars visit these parks on average per month. So the negative impact would be severe. And I wonder what the impact on the NHS would be at Frimley Park Hospital. 70% of the respondents, namely about 951, have stated that parking policies have made them shop or dine elsewhere. And 25%, namely about 337, said they would shop or dine in Surrey Heath less frequently due to the higher parking charges introduced by this council. Businesses, 63% of them, about 341 businesses in Surrey Heath, have stated these changes have resulted in a decrease in customer footfall, and just over half of the businesses have reported that their sales revenue have decreased. And 92% of the participants, namely 1,247 out of 1,356, have stated they do support the call to reverse these parking strategies, as laid out in the petition initially in February. Some of the councillors in this chamber may argue that this council needs more revenue and that the taxpayers should not pay for the upkeep of the car parks, but rather those who use them. The evidence before this council regarding the impact of increased parking charges is clearly outlined on page 23 of the parking strategy published in February 2024. This shows that since the reduction of the 2 hours free parking to 1 hour in approximately, I believe it was April 2023, the footfall actually decreased rather than increased. So the evidence points otherwise. And I believe that Surrey Heath residents and businesses deserve much better. So in conclusion, and on behalf of the residents of Surrey Heath, businesses and visitors, I urge this council to lower car parking charges across the borough, and in particular in Camberley Town Centre, to give 1 to 2 hours of free parking to the residents and thereafter to charge on an hourly rate, but at a lower rate so that people can be enticed to use our local shops and services, to drop any plans to introduce compulsory car parking charges at Framley Lodge Park and Lightwater Country Park, and to reinstate Sunday tariffs at the pay-on-foot car parks so that residents would not have to pay for use of pay-on-foot car parks on Sundays. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay, thank you. We will now debate the petitions. I would like to invite members to discuss the petition, the request actions, to make any comments and move the recommendation. Yep. Councillor Ashbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. In order to facilitate the debate, I have prepared a motion which I would like to propose. Is it okay if I distribute it amongst the members? Yeah. So I would like to propose this motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, point of order really, not for the first time in this chamber, we seem to be receiving paperwork 2 hours before a meeting. I'd just like to understand, from what I understand, the normal system for motions is 7 days in advance, which obviously then goes in the papers. I'm assuming this is not following those, it's following another procedure, and I'd just like that clarified, please, because I do wonder if this is the case and we're going to make this a regular thing, then why we bother having agendas in the first place, we have deadlines, etc., etc. Just if someone can clarify that for me. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. My mic wasn't on. We're just going to consult my... Councillor Garrett, I have been given advice that anyone can move a motion, but it was just they got the right to circulate the papers, yeah? Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. Do you have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Kang. Councillor Ashbury, would you like to speak on your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And I genuinely would like to thank the petitioners for coming here this evening to present the petitions. I'm sure that all the residents that signed the petitions that you put in front of them are very glad that you are representing them here this evening. So genuine thank you for doing it. Because back in October last year, this administration, if you remember, lowered the thresholds at which petitions could be heard by the executive and by full council as a way of making the workings of this council more open and transparent. The purpose of this is to allow residents to challenge councillors and challenge the executive about some of their decisions and to ask them to think again. On this occasion, we have indeed thought again on the issues raised by these petitions, but have come to the same conclusion as we did earlier in the year, that the car parking strategy agreed at the February exec meeting and endorsed as part of the MTFS and the annual budget meeting at February's full council is the right strategy for managing car parking within our borough. I assume that the first petition that was presented was drafted prior to the publication of the parking strategy, as the two car parks it specifically calls out, Heatherside and Paddock Hill, are not planned to have pay-on-foot machines installed in them, and the petition asks us not to. The other factor in that petition was around surgeries and places of worship. Now, traditionally, these organisations have always provided their own parking for their staff, their patients and their parishioners, not parking provided by the council. However, should an organisation wish to approach the council to request some discussions about shared use of a council-owned car park, this could be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Coming now to the current state of our car parks. When I worked in industry, there were two different views of maintenance. The first view I will refer to as the accountant's view. No disrespect to Mr. Watson or any of his team, or to any of my councillor colleagues who work in financial sector. The accountant's view is that maintenance is a cost. And what do accountants want to do with costs? They even have a glossary of terms for them: cost cutting, cost saving, cost avoidance. And I'm sure there are many more. The contrasting view I will call the engineer's view, where maintenance is viewed as an investment. The total productive maintenance, or TPM approach, which suggests that spending on planned preventive maintenance saves money and improves reliability in the medium term. I would suggest that those who made decisions on looking after our car parks over the past decade or so subscribe to the accountants rather than the engineer's view of maintenance. If I take the recommended planned preventive maintenance recommended as industry best practice by Stripe UK, our expert in car parking life care plans, just for our two multi-stories, they recommend a programme of work that amounts to an average investment per annum of around £200,000. Over the past 10 years, Surrey Heath Borough Council has not spent anywhere near this amount of money on maintaining its car parks, and it is no wonder that many of them are now in need of some TLC. There are approximately 62,500 car owners in Surrey Heath, and I recognise that around 3% of them have signed your petition. But the petition only refers to one side of our parking strategy and makes no reference to the extensive programme of repairs and capital expenditure detailed within it. I wonder if the number of signatories would have been different if the question had been framed as, would you like to save 20 pence an hour on car parking and continue to feel unsafe in a poorly lit car park? Or would you like to save 20 pence an hour on car parking to park in a car park which has potholed surfaces which make it difficult for parents to push children in buggies or carers to push wheelchairs? Or are you comfortable with inadequate signage of fire escapes? All of which are planned to be improved as the parking strategy is implemented. I do not feel that it is responsible to continue with the lack of investments in our car parks, and obviously the money required to carry out these improvements has to come from somewhere. To quote Theresa May, there is no magic money tree. Coming on to our country parks, referenced in the petition, there are currently no proposals on the table regarding charging at either Frimley Lodge Park or Lightwater Country Park. However, anybody who regularly parks in either of these car parks will know just how poor the condition of them is. The woeful lack of maintenance over the years has led to these areas degrading to an unacceptable state. And there is an urgent need to repair these car parks before they become a health and safety hazard to the public or before we have to close them. The funding for this will have to be found from somewhere. Any suggestions would be gratefully received. We do not operate in a vacuum, and we do not set our parking charges on a whim. In the preparation of the strategy, extensive benchmarking was done across other providers and neighbouring authorities. Our charges are neither the most expensive nor the cheapest in the surrounding area, but represent a competitive offering to our residents. As everyone is aware, local authority finances across the country are in a somewhat perilous state at the moment, and I keep in the back of my mind that the people of Surrey Heath in May 2023 overwhelmingly elected this administration with its #1 pledge to secure the council's finances. Placing the cost for the overdue investments in our car parks onto the council taxpayer rather than the car park users would, in my opinion, go against that pledge and would be irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. Councillor Kang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to reinforce the point made by Councillor Ashbury. Car parking is a discretionary service, and the council could have considered closing car parks, particularly those requiring significant investment. Investment wasn't occurring for the past 10 years, and the state of these parks really leads to a matter of health and safety for those users. Now, closing those car parks would have made a substantial impact or knock-on impact on the antisocial parking on highways and other public spaces, so we can't get rid of car parks. This council made a very thorough review of the parking strategy in last year, September, and they developed a parking strategy intended to bring about strategic and rounded review of council's car parking, looking at income, tariff structures, level of usage, future technology, maintenance, and required level of future investment. You can't stand still, you have to move forward. So following approval of the strategy, an action plan was created to invest in car parks through a planned investment strategy to ensure they were fit for the future. Employment of enhanced technology and information to improve customer experience. Appropriate management and charging structure to support vitality and economic growth. Now, the council is reliant on the income from parking charges to pay for the cost of providing car parks, including staffing overheads, business rates, cleaning, equipment, revenue and capital investment in repairs and maintenance, all of which are essential to reinforcing of the parking regulations. The core principle of this strategy is that across the borough as a whole, the portfolio of car parks should be financially sustainable, self-funding, avoiding the need for council subsidiary. basically, non-car park users should not be subsidising those car parks. The council is making a loss on these car parks. And therefore, if you make a loss here, you've got to get the funds from somewhere else. And the priorities, there are far more important priorities than car parking, in my personal view. The comparison of income against parking services for financial year 2023-24 showed that the cost exceeded parking income by approximately 128,000.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Now, taking into account of these essential maintenance improvements, the proposed increases in parking are only...
Can someone turn the phone off, please? It's terribly disrespectful.
Okay. The proposed increases in parking tariff, which are suggested,
Just put it on mute. Come on.
are only going to generate not substantial amounts. I don't think it'll even cut even. There won't be a break-even clause. So the council will still be contributing to these car park charges. And that's not really common sense. So income is required to undertake essential maintenance and much-needed improvements in the council car parks. Without an increase in parking tariffs, the council would need to cover the projected budget deficit close to £400,000. So these anticipated increases in income has been factored into the budget proposals. So it is important that income from car parking is sufficient to cover the direct and indirect cost of the service, and also to support the capital investment that is required on an ongoing basis to maintain the fabric of all the car parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Before we say anything, just want to mention, can you please all make sure that your phones are on silent so that nobody else gets distracted? Thank you for Right. Thank you. I would like to invite members to discuss the motion and make comments. Can you please keep it within 3 minutes, if possible? Please, can I ask that if you are intending to move amendment, you make it clear so I can invite another councillor to second this amendment. If an amendment is seconded, you should only debate the contents of the amendment until a vote is taken on the proposed amendment. Please, if I can have Councillor Helen Whitcroft first, Jonathan Quinn second, and Kevin Thompson, and Lisa, sorry, Cal. Is that all right? Oh, sorry, and Julie. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to look at this from a slightly different perspective. I'd like to look at why we need to bring these charges in. I think I'm probably right in saying that there isn't a single member in this room who wants to increase parking charges. This isn't something that any of us want to do, more than something that we have to do. And we have to do this because there has been no significant maintenance on these car parks for a considerable number of years. We have had an external company, Strike, do maintenance assessments on the car park, particularly the multi-storey in Camberley. And within the parking strategy, it's very, very clear that Strike believe that there is a considerable amount of work that needs doing on those car parks. And as a council, we have two alternatives. We either do the work to make sure that they remain safe, or we close them. Now, it's that easy. So the question we have to ask ourselves, and this is something that we haven't heard from the petition organisers, we have to ask ourselves how we are going to pay for these, or whether we want them closed. Now, it is quite clear that closing them, in terms of the sustainability of the borough, of local businesses and its residents, closing these car parks is not an option. So therefore, we have to find the money from somewhere to undertake the repairs. So, as I say, it is with a heavy heart that I have proposed these car parking charges in the past, but unless anybody has any other suggestion in terms of where the money has come from, I'm afraid I do believe that we have little alternative but to leave the charges as they are. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Whitcroft. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment or a series of amendments, so an amended motion to Councillor Ashbury's motion. I've got some copies of this. Can I distribute them? Councillor, that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Got one, all right.
Councillor Quinn, would you like to read?
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that the proposer of the motion was mainly talking about the petitions in his proposing speech. I think we should now focus on the motion that he's presented rather than the petitions, and that's why I'm proposing this amendment. So I wish to propose this amended motion. I'll quickly outline the differences between the original motion proposed by Councillor Ashbury and the amended motion that I'm now bringing before you. So the original motion rightly thanks the petitioners for their hard work in bringing these concerns to our attention. And it also emphasises the need to manage car parks as a discretionary service, ensuring that they do not become a drain on public finances. Now, this is an important point, but it's one that hardly anyone would dispute. We all agree that providing car parks must be financially sustainable. However, the original motion does not go far enough in its recognition of many residents' concerns regarding the increase in car parking charges that occurred earlier this year, and specifically the reduction in the free period for pay-on-foot car parks from 1 hour to 30 minutes. While this may be the financially necessary option in the short term, many Surrey Heath residents and local businesses are feeling the impact of this reduction. My amendment goes further than the one proposed by Councillor Ashbury by proposing that we continue to scrutinise not just the performance of the car park strategy, but also the impact of the reduction in free parking time on residents and businesses. This decision was not just financial. It is a matter of maintaining the vitality of our high streets and supporting local businesses, many of which are still recovering from the COVID pandemic and the cost of living crisis. In essence, my amendment provides room for reflection and adjustment without jeopardising our council's financial strategy. It strikes a balance between financial responsibility and acknowledging the seriousness of the community's concerns by allowing for future review. I urge you to support the amended motion. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Quinn, we need a seconder for your motion. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second that motion and have reserved my right to speak. Thank you.
As Councillor Quinn has already spoken about his motion, Councillor Garrett, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy to. I apologise for my speech because I wrote it at last-minute notice, so hopefully I haven't missed anybody out. Firstly, I would like to start by thanking Councillor Quinn for reaching out across the chamber to second his motion. Whilst we are obviously on different sides of the chamber, as members we have here to support all the residents of Surrey Heath. I would also like to thank the residents who took the time to set up these petitions in the first place to get important feedback from our residents, with a total of just under 2,000 signatures. It's obvious not just from the numbers that signed the petitions, but social media posts and feedback from local businesses, which we will also hear about later, that the increase in parking charges and reducing free period from 1 hour to 30 minutes earlier this year has not been well received. I would also like to pick up on the facts that have been made this evening about investment in the car parks. I know the current administration likes going through old papers, so I'm surprised I haven't seen the previous figures on major capital investments, which were clearly shown in the executive paper from January 22. Now, I grant you that only goes back to 22. This paper shows a full breakdown of figures up to 2021 of just under 1.5 million, which is an average of £187,500, which is not the £200,000 I know Councillor Ashby was referring to, but I can't see that as being a non-major investment in car parks. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's factual, it's there. Okay? When the new administration brought forward the changes to the petition system, I was happy to support it. I would have actually thought it was a good idea and make it easier for residents to voice their concerns and come to the chamber to voice their concerns. They made massive points about listening to the residents. We now find ourselves in a position of this being the second petition signed by residents where we find the administration isn't really listening to their concerns and just carrying on. I'm glad to see that the original motion suggested that the subject of parking was discussed at PNF as part of the portfolio holders update in November, and the deep dive in April. This was something we discussed only at PNF the other week, and Councillor Mears and Councillor Wilson suggested this is something that was brought there. I look forward to us discussing this amendment in the Chamber this evening, and hopefully we can come to an agreement this evening which helps alleviate a number of concerns that residents of Surrey Heath have highlighted and voiced. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just on a
Thank you, Councillor Garrett.
On a point of order, just to clarify the procedure on, because this is not a normal motion, this is a motion in response to a petition. Can I just confirm that now that this amendment has been seconded, that this is now the substantive debate? Therefore, once this debate comes to a close, there will be the vote, and then we will return to the motion, which will then be the substantive debate. Meaning, if someone was to speak in this substantive debate, they could then speak again if they have not already spoken after the vote.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Ives. Yeah. I would like to invite members and make any comments. Please make sure that you stay within 3 minutes. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. Just a comment on the amendment to the motion in part 3 about listening to residents, first of all. I've spoken to a lot of businesses today in Bagshot High Street today, and all the businesses have confirmed to me, all of them since April have had seen significant drop in footfall since the car park changed from an hour to 30 minutes. My business in particular has seen a big impact because a lot of guests now park in my car park because it's free of charge. Therefore, my guests can't get into my car park. A lot of residents in Waverley Road, Cedar Close, and all around Bagshot have made similar comments.
Sorry, I point of order. I hate interrupting other members, but this is a clear conflict of interest. Councillor Gordon is now talking about his business, which is affected. This is not what I believe this is he has not declared an interest, and I believe this is a conflict of interest.
Councillor Gordon, can you please keep it to the subject we're discussing?
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you. So my general summary of points is every business in Bagshot has seen an impact since the car park changes have kicked in. And as an apology, I'm happy to declare that I run a business in Bagshot and I have a company there.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor White and then Councillor Wheeler. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today I happened to go into Bagshot to the car park. I wanted to go and collect a prescription and go to the post office. I did that, took me 40 minutes because the prescription wasn't ready and there was a queue at the post office. Fortunately, I had put some money in the meter because I had a feeling that was going to happen. But there was a couple of ladies, older ladies, who stopped me, and their exact words were, "I can't whiz round the village anymore in half an hour. Do something about it. Please, can we do something about it?" An hour is not going to break the bank. It just helps the elderly people in Bagshot, of which I am one, I don't mind admitting, and I can't whiz round the village in half an hour. So if we could look at that, the half hour back to an hour, that would help an awful lot of people, and it would stop a lot of the antisocial parking in Bagshot.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points of clarity, really. I am supporting the amendment to the motion. I think there's a great deal of sense in the final paragraph that says, let's look at the impact, basically, of this decision. And I think we've had anecdotally evidence this evening that it is already having an impact. There were a couple of points that were made earlier by other speakers. One was around the percentage of people that were impacted by it. The percentage of people impacted by it are those people that are reached. So, for example, I have to confess this half an hour parking charge in the rural car parks and the charges in Camberley Town Centre don't affect my residents. The majority of us don't shop in Camberley, and I'm very lucky that Chobham has held on to its 1 hour because of the sangs that are there, and Windlesham isn't fortunate enough to have a car park to assist the shoppers there. So I, for one, didn't highlight this to my residents because, very selfishly, it didn't directly impact my resident. So I think to make comments about the percentage of people that responded is a little bit disingenuous. I have to say as well that from personal experience, Chobham Car Park has been beautifully refurbished in the last few years, and I'm assuming that that came from council funds, unless there is a resurfacing car parking ferry that suddenly comes out to support the resurfacing of car parks. I think we can all consider that it makes imminent sense to review what the impact of this is on our residents and on the businesses without whom we wouldn't have their taxes paid and without whom we wouldn't have the revenue. So I do hope that there will be true cross-party support for this. It's a logical amendment to the proposal that has put the motion that's been put forward, in my opinion, and I hope we do it. I will also check pay to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Cope.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the important thing about this amendment, as Councillor Wheeler's just said, and she's taken a lot of what I was going to say, I have to say, is this point about reviewing the impact of this. Now, we've heard from the petitioners that a number of the people who've supported this have said, supported the petition, have said they're less likely to use council car parking charges, car parks, given the increase in charges. Now, I accept that this administration has made this car parking strategy a part of its MTFS, and therefore it's very unlikely to turn around and say, oh, well, actually, we're going to reverse the whole decision right now. But we have to be looking at this repeatedly and consistently, and there has to be transparency as to whether this decision works. It may well be that you've made the wrong decision. I think you have, and you should be honest and open enough to say to residents, we're going to keep this under review, we're going to look at the impact on businesses, and we're going to look at how many people are actually using the car park under the increased charges. I think this amendment gives the administration a ladder to climb down on this, and I really, really hope that you look at this and support it.
Councillor Cope. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have had the opportunity to have a look through some of the actual data since this, since the charges were changed, and I've been focusing mainly on the out-of-town car parks, such as Bagshot and Chobham and the rest, because obviously my interest is purely in the east of the borough. And the results don't really bear out what we've been hearing anecdotally, in that, particularly considering there has been some of this maintenance work that's already been going on, much needed maintenance work, and also there's been some EV chargers going in, so there has been some disruption to these car parks. Even despite that, some car parks are a little bit up, some car parks are a little bit down, but overall the position is largely flat. So it's certainly within the margin of normal variance. Now, I appreciate we're only a few months in, and so the data will continue to get looked at. But at the moment, the situation is usage has remained flat, particularly in these out of Camberley car parks, and revenue has gone up, which is precisely the aim of the policy, which is to raise more money to pay for the maintenance of the car parks so that they can wash their own face, and we're no longer subsidising the car parks by the entire council tax paying public, and it's used and paid for by those that use the car parks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Right, okay. So, Councillor Ashbury, Councillor Cal, Vernon Cook, and Councillor Shashi Magnum.
I will reserve my right to speak at the end of the debate on the amendment. Okay. Thank you.
Cook, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow on from what Councillor Thompson was saying with regards to the use of the out-of-town car parks. We've seen absolutely no evidence that there's been a drop-off in the use of the multi-stories in Camberley Town either. We've seen the usual seasonal variances that we would expect to see year on year, and we're absolutely in line with comparable towns and neighbouring towns. So we've seen absolutely no impact from these very small increases into the car parking charges.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know it's in the MTFS. I accept that. It needs to go through. The petitioners have brought some amendments. Councillor Quinn has brought an amendment, which I'm minded to support. What I don't understand, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Vernon Cook have actually said they've seen data. And when we spoke about it last time, I was insistent on saying the footfall for the town centre. I'm surprised only a handful of people have seen it. Here we have got 34 councillors sitting here. None of us have seen the entire data. I think it would be fair if all the councillors had the same set of data to look at. If the data supports it, then the argument doesn't come into play, because it's in the MTFS. So that's my point. But having said all this, I'm minded to support Councillor Quinn's amendment to increase the car parking from 30 minutes to 1 hour and 1 hour. That I would have accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else wants to speak? Councillor Teddy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We hear much about, well, it's had the same number of people. Don't you think that this could be a matter of Hobson's? Because if you take Chobham, which is my concern, there's nowhere else to park. So you either park in the car park and have to pay, because there is nowhere else. So it's very much Hobson's choice, not with the people, and people find it difficult to keep paying more. Thank you.
Councillor Tedder. Councillor Ashbury.
No.
He was on. No, he was on.
Councillor Quinn.
Councillor Quinn, would you like to?
Thank you. Just a very quick right of reply, just to focus the debate on my amendment before members vote. It's not a case of reversing any of the car parking strategy that was introduced by the administration. All this does is insist that we continue to review the effect of changing the pay on foot car parking, the free car parking, the pay on foot car parks from 1 hour to 30 minutes, that we continue to review that change. And that's what this motion is about. And so I would really struggle to understand, if any councillors do vote against this, why they'd be against monitoring what this change does, because that's all this is going to do, unless they suspect that actually it puts people off parking, unless it means they're rushing around the town centres and they're very unhappy, then I don't know why you wouldn't commit to reviewing the impact of this change. And also, Madam Mayor, can I just say now, when we get to a vote, can I initiate a request for a recorded vote, if that's all right? Thank you.
Councillor Ashbury, would you like to exercise your right to reply?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who's contributed to the debate. I am not minded to support this amendment for a number of reasons. Parts of it, I think, are well-meaning, and parts of it, I think, have actually enhanced it. But points 1 and point 3, I cannot support. Largely because I think the scope of what is being said is too narrow. I believe most definitely that the decisions of this administration should face proper scrutiny. I think you're pulling out one tiny part of the strategy. I think the whole strategy should be under scrutiny, as has been laid out by the P&F committee. And I also cannot support it because you dropped 2 of the points, which are key points in there for me, which are that car parking is a discretionary service and should not be a drain on council finances, particularly given the perilous state of local authority financing at the moment, and that we have to fund the improvements, the maintenance, which I've got in there on point 4. I cannot accept those being dropped. That's my reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. Okay, thank you. I would like to move to the vote on the amendment motion. I would like, as Councillor Quinn has asked for a recorded vote, can I have 3 councillors to request this vote, please?
Okay.
Only need 3.
That's fine.
That's fine, thank you.
So, Mr.
Mr. Ramatel will read out your names and you will need to indicate whether you are voting in favour or against the motion or abstaining. The amendment. Yeah. We're going to the amendment. Vote for the amendment motion. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And councillors, when you hear your name called, I'll be grateful if you could confirm for, against or abstain. So, Councillor Ashbury?
Against.
Councillor Louise Ashbury?
Against.
Councillor Johnny Cope?
For.
Councillor Kel Finan-Cook?
Against.
Councillor Lisa Finan-Cook?
Against.
Councillor Sean Garrett?
For.
Councillor Mary Glowett?
Against.
Councillor Mark Gordon?
For.
Councillor Julie Hode? Against. Councillor Nirmal Kang?
Against.
Councillor Sabi Kang?
Against.
Councillor Rob Lee?
Against.
Councillor Sean MacDonald?
Against.
Councillor Leanne McIntyre?
Against.
Councillor Emma Jane McGrath?
For.
Councillor Sashi Malvaganam?
For.
Councillor Liz Noble?
Against.
Councillor Jacques Olmo?
Against.
Councillor David O'Mahony?
Against.
Councillor Ying Perrott?
Against.
Councillor Jonathan Quinn?
For.
Councillor Bob Rakes?
Against.
Councillor Murray Rowlands? Councillor Morgan Rise?
Against.
Councillor John Skipper.
Against.
Councillor Pat Tedder.
For.
Councillor Josh Thorne.
For.
Councillor Kevin Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
For.
Councillor David Whitcroft. Councillor Helen Whitcroft. Councillor Valerie White.
For.
Councillor Richard Wilson.
Against.
Okay, I have the results now. We've got 10 for, 22 against, and 1 abstain. Therefore, the amended motion fails. So now we do return to the abstain. Councillor Ashby, would you like to say?
Sorry, I reserve my right to speak on the substantive motion.
So you invite other members to debate.
Now we invite other members to speak. Oh, Ms. David Whitcroft. Then we've got Julie Hunt and then Victoria Wheeler. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I might, about the original motion and going back to the original point of this discussion, which was the petitions that were put forward. On the subject of the petitions and some of the comments which have been made by some of the opposition members this evening, it's worth bearing in mind that this isn't the first time that parking charges in Surrey Heath have ever been increased. They were increased in 2022 and they were increased in 2009. And to my certain knowledge, they were increased on a number of occasions before that, going back into history, as I quite often do. And I don't recall the Conservative Party in particular raising too many concerns. But of course they were the administration at that time, weren't they? So that's something that we need to bear in mind. The second point I'd like to make, with great respect, is that nobody has answered the question yet, which has been posed on any number of occasions, as to where the money is coming from to maintain and repair Surrey Heath's car parks. If it doesn't come from a contribution from the people who use the car parks, 100% of the cost has to be carried by the council taxpayer. Is that fair? Answer, no. So until somebody can come up with a proposal, and I believe somebody did come up with a proposal once, that maybe parking charges should be voluntary. Well, I don't know about the person concerned. I personally don't live in cloud cuckoo land, which is where that suggestion clearly belongs. Finally, we've heard a lot about data, and it was agreed at the last Performance and Finance Committee that these matters would be reviewed after firm data came forward after November, and then again after April of next year. And at that time, we will know absolutely definitively, not anecdotally, as we've heard on any number of occasions this evening, we will know definitively what the impact has been on footfall and on the revenue delivered by parking charges. So there's been a great deal of heat generated this evening, but I would suggest that a bit more reality needs to be engaged by certain people within this chamber. Thank you, Mayor.
Right, Councillor Hode? And
Thank you, Mayor. I've also looked at the interim data that's been available for the first 5 months, and I think what Councillor Finan-Cook and Councillor Thompson said is correct. The data so far does not show any significant change in demand. But as was said earlier, we need to come back to that when we have a full year's worth of data so we can account for any seasonality. And I'm sure we will be doing that. I wanted to talk briefly, though, not on the car parks where we have data, but the car parks where we have no data. The reason we have no data is Lightwater Country Park and Frimley Lodge Park do not have charging, and we do not track revenue and footfall there. When the proposal for parking charges was first considered early this year, it was agreed right at that point that we would not implement charges at those two locations because we fully understood that these locations are very complex. They're not like multis and surface car parks. They're complex because there's a risk of, if you introduce charging, of moving parking out into residential streets, which are already challenged with that. There's impact on commercial ventures within those two locations. So, for example, in Lightwater Country Park, we have the gym with 2 cafes, we have a mini golf, etc., etc. In Frimley Lodge, we have the Scouts use it, we have park runs, etc., etc. So it's complex. It's not like the other car parks. We agreed that we would not move with any parking charges there, that those two locations absolutely needed to have a full and separate review, a review that would look at the condition of the car parks, because anyone that uses Frimley Lodge will know how prone it is to serious flooding. If you've used Lightwater Country Park, you'll know how bad the potholes are. We need to look at what work needs to be done, what it will cost, and then figure out how we're going to do that. And as part of figuring that out, we need to look at all those impacts in other areas. So right now, this council has no plans to implement any charges at either of those two locations. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Hode. Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased I went after Councillor Hode, because Councillor Hode has just given all of the arguments that we've given in the past for not introducing car parking in the rural car parks. So they're used for sport, they're used for leisure, they're used to support local businesses and local communities. So the phrase disingenuous can't help but pass my lips. I would just be interested to understand the response from the person that proposed the motion on the last point of the amended motion. The second to last point of the amended motion, which is that essentially the council is already predetermined in this matter because we've already made a decision on the parking charges as part of the strategy. And I have to say I'm in the very favourable position of being consistent in my opposition to parking charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. We will ask Councillor Ashbury to respond if he wants to.
No.
And then Councillor Ashbury will have a right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start, anybody playing Lib Dem bingo tonight, we've had 2 trusses and an unexpected Thatcher. I would like to propose, and I'm sure this won't go down well, I'm sure we'll be going off in tangents, that we consider the last point within the motion, the current motion, reference the PNF, and I've obviously got vested interest in that because I'm chair of PNF. Maybe I need to declare an interest. So it mentions about commits to review effect reducing free period on car parks, on both uses of car parks and impacts local businesses. I did suggest at the last meeting of PNF that what we might want to see is footfall figures, because I think it's all relevant. So if footfall figures could be maybe considered within that PNF, and I will certainly be asking for it as chair in the data I get for the portfolio review. In view of the fact that we now know there's going to be a by-election, and just for the record, I've called the by-election. The email has gone into the executive this evening. I thought we'd get in there first. So it has got to, don't worry. So in view of that fact, we're now going to be in a situation where the PNF is not going to happen in October, I would predict, and I suggest we're not going to have one in November. So I want to see this data that you guys have all seen, but we don't apparently see. Because none of us yet, unless I'm missing something, have seen this parking data, and it's not going to be coming out to the public until November. So if that can be made available to the councillors, sorry, all councillors, then I would really appreciate that. I think that covers off all my points. Thank you.
Councillor Garrett, are you proposing an amendment?
It was a suggestion. I don't necessarily think we want to go all through that, because I think it's fair to say Councillor Asprey had already said that he wouldn't. I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion.
Thank you. Councillor Tedder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We heard that there's lots of money to be spent on our car parks and that lots of money hasn't been spent. But we've gathered lots of money, and as yet I've never been able to know where all that money went. So I'd like to see the assurance that all this money we're going to get in from our car parks is generally going to be spent on them.
Councillor Whitcomb. That's fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. This administration took on a thorny subject when it looked at car parking. I think we'd probably all agree on that. We did so because we believe in providing safe, secure, resident-focused services. That's what we said in our manifesto, and that's what we did when we commissioned the full review of car parking, which my colleague Helen Whitcroft led. The officers supported that, and they identified significant failings in our car parking infrastructure and in the financing situation of the car parks. Now, I have to take my hat off to the petitioner in terms of raising awareness of this issue and gaining signatures. But there are roughly 36,000 car owners in Surrey Heath, and actually the number of Surrey Heath residents, which is different to the total number of petitioners entirely, was about 1,500. So a fairly small percentage of car users in Surrey Heath have raised their concerns through the petition. Now, nobody likes raising charges for residents. However, we are dealing with a legacy of decay that we have been handed by the Conservative administration that preceded us, the same administration that was in power for 49 years. It's very much the same as the national picture of decay that others have now inherited. Thankfully not in this seat, where we've managed to replace them with a resident-focused MP. So this administration is not embarrassed about dealing with thorny subjects. We will get the officers' support, we will get the advice, and we will deal with the issues. One of the things that particularly concerns me is that by pushing back on these changes, these modest changes, to make it that the user pays, which is what happens, let's be honest, in all other aspects of life. The implication for the opposition members are that we shouldn't be upgrading our car parks to make them safe and secure and fit for purpose. The world has changed. We expect to have accessible services for our residents that need it. And that was core to what was in this strategy, that we would make sure that those that needed extra space had it. We would make sure that lighting was properly attended to. We would make sure that these places achieved industry benchmarks. And that is why we will resist changes to the car parking strategy, because we're in this for the long term for our residents. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any more debates, any more questions? If there's no more questions, I invite Councillor Ashbury would like to exercise your right to reply, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard a lot this evening about car parks. We've talked back and forth a little bit. The only data I want to pick up on this last bit is the data that Councillor Garrett quite rightly presented. Unfortunately, we're not comparing apples with apples. I was talking only about the town centre multi-stories. The numbers you were talking about were total car park spend. I have in front of me the maintenance spend on the main square car park for the last 10 years, which Stripe UK recommended £120,000. In 2014, we spent 101. In 2023, we spent 73. And at no point after that have we spent more than 30% of what they recommended. So I just wanted to clarify, we weren't talking like for like. So I think we can probably agree to look at the bigger picture. The other point I will make, as chair of P&F, you can ask for whatever data you wish as part of your scrutiny, and I welcome and I will work with the officers to make sure you get that.
Can I just point of order, please? If I knew the data was available, I would ask for it. I didn't know the data was available because I was waiting for it to come to the paper.
Sorry, the data I have presented here tonight.
I'm talking about the data. Okay, so I was referring to data. I apologise.
Yeah, no. The data we took is part of my review with the parking service that I have in my role as portfolio holder, which will come to P&F. You will see that data.
Councillor Garrett, it's not a point of order. Councillor Ashbury, would you like to continue, please?
Right. Yeah. So the parking strategy, as we know, formed a core part of the annual budget and was debated in February. So now I am a little puzzled, or maybe perplexed, maybe the right word, that a number of my colleagues on the opposition benches are now backpedalling, because in my view, if I remember rightly, and my memory might not be what it used to be, but the vote for the budget in February was unanimous. Perhaps if I'm misremembering it, someone from Democratic Services can correct me.
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous. So maybe the councillors who have spoken against the charges or in favour of the petitions this evening have had an epiphany since February and no longer support our budget. Or maybe their support is just political posturing, something which Councillor Garrett often accuses members on this side of the chamber of doing, and has done already this evening. The idiom containing pots and kettles comes to mind. Before I finish, I would genuinely like to thank the petitioners for bringing this tonight to us. And I will say that in summary, the essential maintenance work as laid down in the parking strategy must continue. The very first view of the data suggests any impacts are minimal, and I support all scrutiny of the decisions that have been made. The jury is still out on what needs to be done with our country parks. They cannot be left the way they are. But we don't have an answer yet. So my recommendation is that we continue with the parking strategy as previously agreed. And before I finish, Mayor, I would like to call for a named vote, if I can have some support for that. Thank you.
I would also like to call for a named vote.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ramatol, we'll read out your names. Oh, sorry. Those. Ready?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, councillors, when your name is called, I'll be grateful if you could confirm for, against or abstain. Councillor Alan Ashbury.
For.
Councillor Louise Ashbury.
For.
Councillor Johnny Cope.
Against.
Councillor Kel Farnan-Cook.
For.
Councillor Lisa Farnan-Cook.
For.
Councillor Sean Garrett.
Against.
Councillor Mary Glowett.
For.
Councillor Mark Gordon.
Against.
Councillor Julie Hode. Councillor Nirmal Kang.
For.
Councillor Sabi Kang.
For.
Councillor Rob Lee.
For.
Councillor Sean MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Leanne McIntyre.
For.
Councillor Emma Jane McGrath.
Against.
Councillor Sashi Malvaganam.
Against.
Councillor Liz Noble.
For.
Councillor Jacques Olmo.
For.
Councillor David O'Mahony.
For.
Councillor Ying Perrott.
For.
Councillor Jonathan Quinn.
Abstain.
Councillor Bob Rakes.
For.
Councillor Murray Rowlands. Councillor Morgan Rise.
For.
Councillor John Skipper.
For.
Apologies, was that for, Councillor Skipper?
For.
Councillor Pat Tedder.
Against.
Councillor Josh Thorne.
Against.
Councillor Kevin Thompson.
For.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
Against?
Councillor David Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Valerie White.
Against.
Councillor Richard Wilson.
For.
Members, I declare the vote. 9 against, 22 for, and 2 abstain. I therefore declare the vote is carried. Thank you. Now we go to item 8, Executives Committee and other bodies. Executives minutes and recommendations. Can I have a proposal for the executive minutes and recommendations?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to propose those.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to second.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes and agree the recommendations? Can I have a proposal for Planning Application Committee minutes? Do you have a seconder? Sean Garrett.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Gordon has had to go because he's got a bit of an issue at work, so I was a little bit preoccupied, so I apologise for that. So what am I saying? Sorry.
That's okay.
Planning.
Application
Sorry, yes, and I'm
committee.
seconding that.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy, more than happy to second that minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. Employment Committee. Can I have a proposal for the Employment Committee minutes and the recommendations at minutes 6EC?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to propose reception of the two meetings in question. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes and agree the recommendations? Thank you. Licensing Committee. Can I have a proposal for Licensing Committee minutes? Committee minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to propose those minutes for the meeting of the 12th of June.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. External Partnership Select Committee. Can I have a proposal for the External Partnership Select Committee minutes? Ooh.
Happy to propose them, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, Mr. Lee?
I'm happy to second those minutes, Mayor.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. Audit Standard and Risk Committee.
I'm happy to propose those minutes.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I'm happy to second those minutes, Mayor.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. Can I have a proposal for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes?
I'm there this time, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to propose those minutes.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Joint Staff Consultative Group, sorry. It's getting tiring now. Parking. Can I have a proposal for these notes and joint staff?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to propose those minutes.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Number 9, appointment of monitoring officer. I would like to invite Councillor David Whitcroft to introduce the report and move the recommendations therein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would you like me to speak to it or just propose it at this point?
Yeah, you can speak if you would like.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't propose to go through the agenda item. It is obviously in front of you. But I'm happy to say that the satisfactory references now having been received for the successful applicant, there is now no need for the confidential item which is referred to be discussed later. I will say, however, that the recruitment process for this position was both detailed and rigorous and included a technical test which those interviewed passed successfully. Some details of the test were passed on to the subcommittee during the assessment period which followed the interviews. The subcommittee, which included the new appointee's line manager, the interim chief executive, as a non-voting member, was unanimous in its choice of the successful candidate, who is Nathalie Boateng. And I emphasise Nathalie, not Natalie. She is currently employed as Head of Legal and Monitoring Officer at both Broxbourne and Epping Forest District Councils. And she impressed us with her background and experience, not to mention her personality and her calmness whilst under the considerable pressure of the interview process. So in conclusion, I believe, and I'm sure my fellow subcommittee members will agree, that Nathalie will do an outstanding job for the council since she hugely impressed the subcommittee with the breadth and scope of her knowledge, which was, in the subcommittee's view, superior to the other applicants for the role. I have no hesitation, therefore, in recommending to the Council that Nathalie Boateng be appointed as the Council's monitoring officer upon commencing employment with the Council as Head of Legal and Democratic Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcroft. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It won't happen very often, but I actually agree with everything that Councillor Whitcroft has just said. So I'm happy to agree. The process, both candidates said that the process that they went through was probably one of the most in-depth that they had ever done. Congratulations to the team for pulling that all together. Happy to support Nathalie. She certainly was, for me, the better candidate, although there were two very good, high-quality candidates. If I could just take the liberty, I would just like to say thank you to the outgoing monitoring officer, if that is okay at this point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
I'm sure you will love this. And it will be only short, so don't worry. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Gavin for his time at Surrey Heath Borough Council. He started in October 2021. During this time here, it has been my pleasure to work with him. If ever I have had any issues of a legal or governance nature, I have always found Gavin to be a great sounding board, making sure I understand all sides of any particular issue. I would like to wish Gavin all the best in his new role as Assistant Director, Legal of Governance and Monitoring Officer at Welwyn Hatfield. So, Gavin, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Do you have any comments, members? Oh, Victoria Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the panel, but having sat through a number of them, I know that the process is always rigorous. I would just like to, very shortly, if you can bear with me, and it is very quick, thank Gavin very much for his support over, I think it's just more than 4 years ago, but I may be misremembering. He's certainly had a fun few years and a wide remit with us. As well as being the go-to person for complaints about councillors, he is also our go-to person to ensure that we're all kept in the straight and narrow. Certainly a challenge in some cases when political passion and local agendas could lead some to be a little bit over-enthusiastic with their responses. I have no idea whether or not you are a Libra, but if you're not, then you should be. As you have on every engagement supported a balanced approach, whether dealing with residents, parish or borough councillors, and you will be a very tough act to follow. And can I say that dealing with all of that is just part of the job that you're also responsible. You're all legal matters and contract negotiations, information governance, democratic services and elections, which seem to be happening more frequently than the designated 4 years that we've heard about has been implied tonight, and obviously, of course, audit. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that you found the time to attend interviews, and I'm jolly sorry that you have. We should have kept you busier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I find it difficult to disagree with Councillor Wheeler and Councillor Garrett. But to start with, can I just thank Councillor Whitcroft for coordinating the panel and all the members of it that spent the time, because it's not an insignificant amount of time that's spent. The second thing, and also the officers that are involved in the process as well to facilitate it, it's much, much appreciated. To make sure we get the highest possible calibre monitoring officer to support us all for the reasons that Councillor Wheeler identified. I think it's also worth just noting in the report that we're very grateful to Rebecca Batten for taking on the role in the interim until Nathalie Boateng arrives, and we look forward to working with her, but we're very grateful to Rebecca for stepping into the breach. As members will know, it is a legal requirement for us to have a monitoring officer. Obviously, we need to be kept on track, which is a question in itself. So that's that piece. I think the other piece, really, just to comment on is Gavin. So thank you ever so much for your service to the council. We have not always agreed, And I think we even had this conversation, which is, had you agreed with me all of the time, I would be worried because you're not doing your job properly. So it's good that we've had those discussions on the finer points of interesting things like CGRs and various other things, and what I can and cannot say in a press release. Those were joyful times, particularly about a year ago, as some people might remember. So, yeah, we very much appreciate your support, and I think maybe the aspect that people potentially haven't commented on sufficiently is that actually Gavin has provided massive support to Joint Waste Services and to managing that contract. So in his role here, he has been providing services to the 4 boroughs in that contract and making sure that our contractual rights are preserved and also refuting some serious challenges from what is trying to be a guerrilla towards us. And thank you so much for that, because you've protected the public purse in that process, and we much appreciate it and managed the risk down. So we wish you the very best of luck in your new role. This is our opportunity to say that, although you're still around for a while, and no doubt we'll find some more complaints for you before you go. Hopefully not out tonight. And obviously we'll look forward to welcoming Nathalie Boateng into the role and supporting her over the years ahead. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I also would like to say good luck to Gavin. It's been a pleasure working with you for a short time. And if you do miss us, we're always on YouTube. So do look back to us. Right, okay. Do members agree with item 9? Thank you. Item 10. Review of community and political proportionality. Since the publication of the agenda, there have been further changes to following Councillor Mayor's resignation. It is proposed that the allocation of the seats remain the same for now. This will be reviewed again after any by-election. The scheme of proportionality with the 34 councillors is set out in Annex A. This was circulated earlier today. You will see reserved membership, revised membership of the committees for the Conservative group has been circulated at Annex B. I move that the scheme of the proportionality remains as set out on Annex A, and the agenda and the changes to Conservative group membership are noted. Do I have a seconder?
So,
we need a seconder first.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Do I have any comments, members? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this very short. My apologies for this sort of change in proportionality. As you know, I'm here and joined the Conservative group because I just cannot continue to support the leader, because he made a statement saying that council was bust. If the council was bust, I would have called it out 3 years ago, or year and a half ago. When I was opposition leader, I did the MTFS, I did the forecasting budget.
Point of
Council
order,
is
Madam
not
Mayor.
bust.
Point of order.
No.
According to
Madam
the
Mayor, my speech is very short.
One at a time, please.
What I would like to finish
Point of
off.
order. The Constitution is clear that speaking in a debate must be about the motion at hand and the report. The report is about political proportionality, not about the council's finances.
Council's finance, Madam Mayor, I'm about to finish. Council finance has come into play because of the proportionality has changed because of one person and no confidence whatsoever.
Please,
Thank you,
please,
Madam
can we
Mayor.
please stick
And
to
also, I
the-
released a full statement in the.
Thank you, thank you. Can we please stick to the agenda, please? Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any comments, members? If not, is that agreed, members? Agreed. Okay. Item 11. Questions from councillors. I can advise that no questions have been received from councillors. We will therefore move on to the leaders' questions time. I would like to invite members to ask questions of the leader, Councillor Sean MacDonald, or his executives on issues relating to executive functions. Please be aware that the 20 minutes is allocated to leaders' question time. As usual, I will try to ensure all members have had an opportunity to ask a first question before I invite you to ask a second question. So if you have more than one question, please prioritise your questions first. Please also keep your introduction to your question as short as possible, so we hear as many questions as possible. Can I have the first question from members? Right, so I'm just going to make a note of the order. Yeah. Just bear with us a second, yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So again, if I can remind you, can we please stick to the agenda? Councillor Quinn first, then I've got Councillor Cope, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Rowlands, Councillor Garrett and Councillor Lee. Is that right? Councillor Quinn. Oh,
thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, and Councillor America. And Councillor America. Okay, thank you.
Mayor. I'd just like to echo the comments made earlier by the council leader regarding the by-election in Old Dean. He was correct when he said it's one of the most economically deprived wards in the borough and it has a high burden of casework, and therefore it wouldn't be appropriate to have a delay to that by-election. And I'm glad it's now been called because that ward needs 2 councillors to represent them here. Now the by-election has been triggered, of course the date will be set by Democratic Services, but there's a good chance it could be on Halloween itself. Given the spooky nature of the council's finances, does he agree that whoever the new councillor is, that boosting turnout is important, and having an election on that holiday, while it may be fun for making political puns, it may be difficult to boost turnout if residents are engaged in Halloween festivities and doing trick-or-treating and the like. So I'm wondering if he shares my concern about that, and whether he thinks Democratic Services or political parties can do anything to raise awareness of that election to make sure residents have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. According to the maths, the calculation I've done, it would be well before Halloween. So I don't think that is a concern or a risk. But equally, once the by-election is triggered, it's very much in the hands of the returning officer, who, as you know, is the chief executive. So I think we leave it to the chief executive, returning officer, and Democratic Services to manage that process within the legal framework, which I think is 35 days from when it's triggered, which gives us a bit of a window, and we see where we land. I think it's the expectation that it might be the 24th, but again, that's not within my my remit. Your point around boosting turnout, absolutely, yeah. Forgetting the spooky comment, which, by the way, nice one. Nearly as good as my sticky one, but not quite. So very much appreciate the point there around turnout. I think all of us would want to see that to be as high as possible. I think it's also fair to say, and I don't have the data to hand, so I'll go on the hypothesis from being in the general election count, that it probably wasn't the biggest turnout area during the general election either. So it's something we can all work on, and I look forward to doing that across the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cope?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This question might not come as a surprise to the leader because I tried to ask it yesterday and it wasn't the appropriate time, so I'm going to ask it today. It's around the Council's communications strategy and the habit of releasing press releases before decisions have been made. I'm not going to revisit what happened yesterday, but this was been drawn to my attention by the press release on the Wellington Park TPO. I just wonder, could he tell me why this habit is in place and whether it might be reconsidered given the discussion we had yesterday?
Thank you, Councillor Cope. Always happy to reconsider things and look at things afresh. As he probably appreciates, when the agenda for the any council meeting goes live, it's accessible to the public. and therefore we think it's important that we try and inform them as to what the issues of the day are in a succinct way, which tends to be these press releases or social media activity. Each one is carefully vetted by the council comms team and of course the monitoring officer very often. So I'm sure he won't miss that. But also by the chief executive, and it's always with a view to it is being proposed that the executive makes the decision. As I reminded the chamber yesterday, the decision is not made until the executive makes the decision. Okay, but I'm happy to take that away and think about it on this particular issue. As I said last night, we got caught out, and we apologise to the residents, particularly of Wellington Park, for that. That doesn't change the fact that it was the right decision of the executive yesterday to defer it for a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Glowett was ahead of me. I'm happy to go after her.
Thank you, Mayor. A totally different subject, really. Some of you probably saw in today's papers and news that the big butterfly count has declared a butterfly emergency following a dramatic decline in the numbers spotted during their national survey, going from 12 to 7 in the 15-minute window that they counted them. And this is the lowest it's been since they started 14 years ago. And this is a real low point in the trend, and experts say it is a 50-year downward trend and another signal of decreasing biodiversity. Can the leader comment on Surrey Heath's response to this worrying news?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to defer to Councillor Rise to respond to that one.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Gow, for that raising this important issue, which, given our rich and varied and much cherried open spaces, they need attention to protect our the biodiversity and for future generations. As members will be aware, we've tried to build into all of our council plans mitigation of the impact on nature to ensure that not only do we avoid further decline, but we put in place plans to enhance biodiversity to assist its recovery. An example would be the local plan, where we've put in place an ambitious and beyond the national minimum guidance 20% biodiversity net gain target on all developments. This thinking is replicated across our internal activities too by the Parks and Leisures team, so that we provide the right circumstances for nature to flourish. I think it's also worth us remembering as individual residents that we can support nature in our gardening practices and landscaping decisions, such as rewilding gardens and other opportunities. Nevertheless, reflecting on the worrying news which was released by the Butterfly Conservation, and just to give some numbers, the 2024 big butterfly count, there was a recorded drop of almost 600,000 butterflies, which is equivalent to more than a third of the 2023's total. More information on that can be found on the Butterfly Conservation's website. Just to round off, providing and promoting biodiverse environments is not just a task that can be completed by Surrey Heath alone, but requires partnership working across all levels of government, private sectors such as house building and construction, and residents in providing space within their own properties. By working together as a whole community, I believe that we can turn around a declining rate in species like butterflies.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Thank you. We're just going to go through the order. I do apologise because we can't see the hands, so next time just slightly up. So the order I've got is Councillor Wilson, Councillor Rowlands, Councillor Garrett and Councillor Lee. Is that right? Anyone to change over? Okay. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Winter is coming, Mayor. Given the ongoing cost of living crisis caused by the reckless actions of the party of Liz Truss when in government, and the recent and inexplicable, callous and cruel decision by the new Labour government to cut universal winter fuel allowance from all but the poorest pensioners, only those in receipt of pension credit. And remember, over 800,000 nationally households are entitled to pension credit and don't claim it. Can the leader confirm what measures the council has in place and what additional plans are are in place to help vulnerable Surrey Heath pensioners that may be forced into a decision to heat their house or to eat this winter. What can the council do to help these people, and particularly I'm thinking about pensioners in wards like Old Dean? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yes, it is quite staggering that one of the first actions of the new government was to attack pensioners, particularly when it knew that qualifying criteria, the pension credit, was so undersubscribed by those most vulnerable. At a time when energy prices are going back up again, with the cap being lifted. I would urge everybody to look into our communities and use your influence and network to find pensioners that need to apply for the pension credit where possible before Christmas, which I think the end of the year is the cut-off. I know that our revenue and benefits team, as well as contact centre staff under Mr Watson, are working hard to signpost people they think might be able to claim, with the support of our excellent Citizens Advice Surrey Heath, that the council supports financially and with accessible office accommodation, as well as signposting them towards the Department for Work and Pensions. Additionally, we will be using our various digital channels, as well as Heath Scene, which will go through every door in the borough before the end of the year to spread the word. I'm conscious Councillor Phelan Cook might be able to add more other actions we are taking to help some of the most vulnerable residents this winter. Councillor?
Thank you, Leader. I just want to echo your sentiments. The withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance with such short notice has been a huge challenge, I think, within our community. But in terms of what we're doing here in Surrey Heath Borough Council, winter preparedness, we are working closely with organisations that have provided warm welcome venues in previous years across the borough, and will shortly be in a position to share details of those venues offering warm spaces during the colder months. That will be shared on the council website, probably through our social media channels and elsewhere on your community notice boards. So please do take heed of that and spread the word. We'll be linking also to a range of other support options for residents experiencing fuel poverty and sharing those details with residents also. The Emergency Food, Fuel and Energy Grant is available for up to £5,000 for organisations providing warm hub or food bank type operations. And in previous years, we've provided grants to, among other organisations, St Mary's Church, St Martin's Church, the Old Dean Free Food Stall and the Hope Hub. An extension of the Household Support Fund has been announced, and we're waiting for details of what this means for us. We'll be working with our partner, Citizens Advice Surrey Heath, to distribute this vital funding to residents during the winter in the form of food and fuel vouchers, and residents accessing this support from Citizens Advice will be able to access a range of other support services from them around debts, budgeting and fuel poverty. Our revenue grant cash supports this vital work. And I would just also like to, at this point, mention about the pension credit application process, which can be very difficult and challenging. And Citizens Advice Surrey Heath are more than happy to advise anybody in Surrey Heath about how they can apply for that. And I would encourage you all as members to seek out the vulnerable in your wards. We work closely with partners in the borough to ensure that there's a range of support available for our most vulnerable residents. We provide revenue grants to the Hope Hub, which support homeless residents and those at risk of homelessness. Surrey Heath Age Concern, who provide activities and befriending to our older residents and do vital work. And Voluntary Support North Surrey, who work with our voluntary organisations in the borough to ensure that they can access a range of funding options to keep them sustainable. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rowland, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It may be well that the horse has already bolted, but some of us are concerned that the net result of the previous Conservative administration was to reduce social housing at the new Dettingen barracks from 35% down to 15%. Now, it may well be we'll be too late, but I've written to the Defence Minister, Mr Healy, about the possibility of reviewing that decision. We may be too far down the road, but I was wondering whether the council will going back and having a look at that figure, which is a very disappointing one. and I think was against the feeling of the council when it actually went through. So I was just asking whether it would be possible to ask the Defence Minister whether he could review the amount of social housing at Dettingen.
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. I think the objective of having more social housing and affordable housing is one we absolutely support. As he probably appreciates, that agreement was put in place well before this administration's time at 35%. It had a number of mechanisms in it to look at whether or not that could be maintained. And it's primarily been around issues of viability. I will be happy to look at the response that comes back from the Ministry of Defence on this point. However, our role here is to apply the rule of law. There is an agreement in place and there are procedures in place, and we need to follow those until somebody changes the rules for us. We are not able to change those rules. So I very much appreciate the intent, very much support the intent, very happy to see what comes back from the Ministry of Defence and any other stakeholders you've contacted and work with officers to see if we can leverage off that. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett, please.
Thank you. I've actually got 3 questions, and Leader, if you don't mind, I'll email you 2 of them after the meeting because I know we're short of time. Interestingly, suddenly the old Dean has got a lot of attention. Never heard it mentioned so much in the Chamber, which is great news, and I'm glad the Chamber is worried about my case workload and how I may be able to support my residents. We are lucky to have a great network of support on the old Dean, as many of you might be well aware, and we will certainly be making sure that those affected by the scandalous removal of the winter fuel allowance will be looked after. You actually already commented on this, so I'm going to turn it into a question. I would like the Leader, if he would agree, to thank Councillor Lewis Mears for his time as Borough Councillor serving the residents of the Old Dean Ward. It has been a great time to see someone who's so young bring so much experience and challenging questions to the Chamber. I'm sure you would agree. I know he has given a lot of support to many residents and supported many organisations within the community. He will be greatly missed, and I'd like to wish him all the best in Hong Kong. And I've already told him he needs to make sure his spare room is ready for all of us councillors that want to visit him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. More than happy to do that. I think I've been quite generous in my comments earlier. I hope not Councillor Mears. I hope Lewis respected that. I think what I said I genuinely meant, so therefore I'm very happy to agree with Councillor Garrett. We wish you the best of luck. And I think you've been a role model for, as have some other younger councillors across the chamber here, you have been a role model for younger people getting involved in democracy, and I think we very much value that. So thank you, Lewis. And if you can find somebody suitably under the average age of this chamber, I'm sure that would also be a motion we'd all be very happy to support. Equally, we're very happy to welcome anybody in due course once they've been through the process. But yes, we'll all be getting to see more of the old Dean. I have done a bit of canvassing there myself in the past, Councillor, but I look forward to seeing you on the streets.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, we've got 3 minutes. So please speak fast.
I've got to speak fast. I'll give it my best shot, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. I know in the period between January and May 2024, Conservative councillor Trevor Hogg ran the Dean Parade rental auction petition. After much plugging of the petition across various media of the so-called Trevor's Law by the then absent MP Michael Gove, Councillor Hogg managed to garner 203 signatures from the Old Dean residents in support. The petition called on Surrey Heath Borough Council to make use of the powers provided to them in Part 10 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023 for the letting by local authorities of vacant high street premises. I was there yesterday, there are quite a few. It went further to say Old Dean Community Group therefore resolves at their meeting on the 10th of January 2024 to petition Surrey Heath Borough Council to make use of the powers they have been given. The question: could the Leader please update us on the status of this missing petition and why such an important issue as bringing the shops on the Old Dean out of long-term disuse has not been presented to to full council for discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. In the interest of time, I'll cut to the chase. With respect to the petition, I find it hugely annoying that Councillor Hogg and other Conservatives have wasted Surrey Heath Borough Council officers' time with this petition and specifically looking into the implementation of the legislation, when, as he knew, the statutory guidance has still not been published, and thus asking us to do something as a council we had no legal powers to do. In doing so, he has repeatedly misled the residents of Old Dean by setting up false expectations of progress and besmirched this council's reputation, all as a publicity stunt for his own and his party's perceived benefits. The residents of Old Dean deserve better, and hopefully they will get one in a community champion shortly. The petition is therefore currently in limbo, having achieved sufficient signatures for a discussion at the executive. However, there is nothing to discuss until the relevant guidance is published by central government, if it ever is. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I take it has anybody else got first question? But that's the second question. Now we've got 1 minute. Now you can fight amongst yourselves. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be really quick. Conservative Surrey County Council has plans to close the Swift Lane Recycling Centre in Bagshot. Does the leader agree with me that this is likely to cause an increase in fly tipping in the countryside around Bagshot and Windlesham and harm to the environment, increase in traffic congestion as people have to drive, thousands of people have to drive to the other side of Camberley to dump their household waste, and it's going to increase the queues at the Camberley Recycling Centre as well. This is just another erosion of public services by the party of Liz Truss. Where will it end? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. As I think the Conservative members, many Conservative members will know, because they took a picture of my hedge and my house during the campaign and posted it on social media, which I thought was a little bit poor show. I have a reasonably extensive hedge, so this is a concern to me as a Lightwater resident as to where all this material will go twice a year. But it's also relevant for many of the villages on the east side, and I believe also some of our neighbours across the border, as they have access to the Bagshot site. I think we're all aware that the Bagshot site is not optimal, but the removal of it will cause substantially longer journeys and extra emissions in that process to get to alternatives, be they Lyme, be they Woking, or be they Camberley. I'm particularly concerned about Camberley and the impact on Camberley residents as well, because the existing site in Camberley is located on an already congested location. So we are a borough, we are a county. Putting a recycling centre that other people can't use from outside your county right on the border makes no logistic sense whatsoever, but that's what the county did in the past. So I agree with the sentiment of the petition that you've now put forward on behalf of the residents, which I was happy to sign. And we'll be working strongly to see this decision reversed, because I genuinely think it is a decision that's already been made, and they're just going to tinker around the edges. What will be absolutely vital is that those impact assessments are done on traffic. And I know there is some scepticism on Surrey County Council's ability to do traffic implications well from the Planning Committee. So we'll definitely need to hold their feet to the fire on that, and specifically what they plan to do to avoid queuing into the Camberley tip at peak times and the opening hours and all these other things that go with it. So yes, it's not a welcome move on the part of Surrey County Council. I'm happy to work with him and indeed other members across the chamber as we try to find a better solution here. Thank you.
Sorry, we are running out of time now. So, Councillor Rowland, if you want to email your question and copy it to the Democratic Services, I'm sure he'll be happy to reply. Is that okay? Thank you. Now that concludes the business of the meeting, and I would like to thank everyone who attended, the public and the officers and all of you. Thank you for attending and have a good evening.